again for coming together on this. As I've told Rob many times, I really, really enjoy this film. And you all did a great job. And I'm glad we have a chance to share the story with a larger audience.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
So I think we're going to be going live in just a second here. TJ,
Yeah,
are we going live?
yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead, John.
Hello, everyone. Greetings. Welcome to another exciting afternoon at the Arizona International Film Festival. I'm John Mason. I'm the Director of Special Projects with the festival. I'm here with my colleague who's hiding. He's invisible, TJ Steve, who is with us helping. And of course, the distinguished members of the Hell of a Heartache creative team. We're going to be talking about the making of Hell of a Heartache in just a second and meeting the individuals on the panel for today. But again, because this is a film festival and this is a very exciting and entertaining and enjoyable film, it has a wonderful trailer, and we're going to look at the trailer right now. We'll be back in a second.
This was a hit song, #1 back in 1990 something. I don't know. It's all blurring together these days. So.
You don't remember 13 years ago?
Fuck no. I remember a tour. I don't remember you though.
You don't remember coming back in Phoenix, the hotel room?
Darling, I've never met you before in my life, other than at the bar. What the fuck do you want?
Sad girl up there.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
She's your daughter.
You sure got away with people, kid. Maybe you are mine.
I know she still loves me.
You're right about that. She does love you. She's doing the best that she can.
We're back. Hell of a Heartache. A great, great film. Very enjoyable. Shot here in Arizona. We're going to talk about that. Let me introduce our very distinguished panel to you. And oh, by the way, I should tell the members of the audience, if you have questions, comments, want to ask anything, go to the Q&A bar tab at the bar at the bottom and type in your question, and I'll be taking a look at those as we go along. So first, and of course, leading the charge here, so to speak, is the writer, director, lead actor of the film, Mr. Rob Burson. Is very able, beyond able, first assistant director, Katie Owens. The director of cinematography, Vic Rincon. And the music composer, director, Brandon Rincon. Hi, guys. Greetings.
Hey.
All right, let's get started. Rob, would you lead us off? We're going to go around the horn here and have each of the panelists tell us a little bit about himself, herself, how you got into the business, what got you interested into film, What, if you went off to school, where did you go to school? How did you learn about the business? What opened the door? What kinds of projects have you been working on? Take us up to Hell of a Heartache, and then we'll take it from there afterward, but bring us up to speed a little bit on who you are and what you've been doing. Rob?
Sure. Okay. Thanks. First, we're really excited to be part of the Arizona International Film Festival. So thanks very much. It's a real honor. And it was nice talking to you, working up to this, John, and getting to know you a little bit. So thanks for putting all this together and doing this. So we definitely appreciate it. It's very exciting for us. I probably first got interested in film when my dad took me to see Star Wars, A New Hope. Back then it was just Star Wars. And I went and bought a book on the storyboards of Star Wars and all the storyboarding that they did, and it had the actual screenplay in it. That kind of got me thinking about film. And then that got put on the shelf for maybe 30 years. And then there was a film school in Sedona called the Zachy Gordon Film School. It later became the Sedona Film School. And I had just gone through a divorce, was kind of looking for something to do rather than sit at home. And I went and started trying out for some of the short films that they shot there. And from there, just got involved in acting in the short films, got to know Vic and Katie and Brendan in that process. And then Vic and Katie and I, we kind of decided, and Brendan, to sort of branch off and maybe shoot some short films together, and they seemed to work. There was we felt like there was something good going on there, and we just kept doing that. And then eventually basically decided, I think we can shoot a feature film. We just need a couple weeks and, maybe $5,000 or $6,000 is kind of how it started. And we went from there. So that's in brief, my story.
Sounds good. Katie?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I first got interested in film probably because of my parents. They're big film buffs. The first film that I can remember paying attention more to the way that it was made and the way it was shot was The Outsiders. And when I was a little bit older, The Lord of the Rings came out, and on the DVD was all the behind the scenes stuff, and it was hours and hours of behind the scenes. And I probably watched the behind the scenes making of footage more than I watched the actual movie, which is saying something. In high school, I stumbled into the digital media class and started honing my skills a little bit more towards editing, and fell in love with filmmaking in general. And then I went to Zachy Gordon Film School, where I met Vic and Rob, and the rest is kind of history. As far as opening doors, we've kind of opened our own doors by just continually writing and directing and going out and shooting things until we finally shot a feature together.
Vic?
So yeah, my story is kind of similar to Rob's. I feel like, granted, 20 years later. Star Wars was like a big one for me as well. Also Jurassic Park. Those are like two movies that stuck out in my childhood that really caught my attention and got me into filmmaking. And wasn't long before, I was started taking filmmaking classes all through middle school and high school. I just kind of always knew it was exactly what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be into. Wasn't really ever a question of doing anything else, and it's really all I know how to do is film. So so same thing. I met Rob and Katie at film school, and from there on out we've just been making movies together. So.
And Brendan?
Well, I first got into music mostly through music that my dad showed me when I was a kid. And there's actually two that really stuck out to me as a kid. One of them was Moby's album Play, and the other one was a really obscure Aphex Twin EP called the Power Pill EP, and it was a bunch of Pac-Man remixes. And those two things, like, those were like the two light bulb moments of like, oh, you can make music with computers, you know, as a kid. So like I never really figured out how to really push that any further, maybe until I was like 12 or 13. And my parents got me a copy of FL Studio for PC, and I just kind of started making music, and I never stopped. And then throughout middle school and high school, Vic and I, she left this part out, all all of the stupid little YouTube shorts that we made, and you know, goofing around with visual effects and sound design and video editing and just making stuff. We've always made stuff together. So then she went off to film school, and I just kind of rode her coattails straight into the film world. And yeah, so now I make my own music, and then I also, anytime Vic needs music, or Rob or Katie, they need sound for one of their things, I'm just kind of the guy. So
Yeah, I guess I went with the full Spark Notes version there, but like we were doing stuff as siblings, you know, from the beginning, you know, like right at the, like the YouTube era of 2005 and onward, we were, you know, always just making stuff, and you know, just kids playing around and learning, basically.
So do you have some of those embarrassing YouTube videos that you could show us? No,
you can find them yourself if you know the right keywords, but I'm just gonna leave that. I'm not gonna provide that path.
Those are
I see, and you've all alluded to this, and looking at your backgrounds, I've seen things like The Fair, The Duty, Resurgence. These are all short films you guys made together? Were these out of film school, or connected to it somehow, or just because of the fact that you went to school and just were hanging out together?
yeah,
Oh yeah, Rob was my villain in my thesis film in film school, and he was in a ton of films when we were in film school, and we just kind of, it was just one of those things where we clicked really well as collaborators, and we went from there.
yeah,
Okay, I'd like to talk a little bit later more about film school, but let's take a look at Hell of a Heartache now and get into the meat of the thing here. Rob, you know, it's interesting, correct me if I'm wrong, but in looking at your film, which I have several times, I do not see you listed as writer. And yet you're, of course, the director and the lead actor. And looking through it, I'm wondering who wrote this thing. And I come to find out you did. And so you've got that. You're the ultimate hyphenate here. You did it all. So how did Hell of a Heartache get into your head? How did it get down on paper? Tell us a little bit about that process.
Sure. Well, there is a co-writer. Matthew Taylor co-wrote the script with me. So I do have a co-writer. I wrote the original draft, sent it off to him. He did some things. We adjusted from there, and it went back and forth until we finally had a script that we kind of were approaching the shoot date, and we're like, we got to run with this. And so there was a co-writer. I think Vic and I knew we wanted to shoot a feature before there was a script. So I tried 2 or 3 different scripts that were just pretty bad. I mean, there had some things that were okay in there, but then finally I wasn't really writing about what I kind of knew, maybe like some real experiences I might be able to draw from. So then I changed to writing about some things that I'm not to the extent of Bobby Thompson, but some things that I may have experienced in my life and could wrap them around this character who was very reckless and, you know, trying to raise a daughter. So that's how it kind of all started. The script was definitely sent to Katie at one point in time. She's contributed lines to it. It went to Vic for some things. One of the extras in the film, Chris Reedish, who's directed his own movies, he helped with the script at some point. So it just sort of it was a very collaborative effort with myself and Matthew Taylor being the main writers.
How long from the time you sat down and put the first, computer key to pay, to on, or pencil to paper did it take you to finish the script and you're ready to go with it?
Maybe 6 months. Vic, do you remember at all me sending the roughs to you at all? But 6 months maybe?
Yeah, I feel like maybe we started, it might have been like June 2017 or November. It was definitely 2017 that you started writing it. And then I think you had a final draft by like March or April 2018, or very close to finished. Yeah.
That sounds
So,
about right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like 6 to 8 months, I think, around.
And and we talked a little bit about this on the phone, Rob, and I will appreciate any delicacies that you want to wrap around this, but the question, the idea of autobiography in the script, how much of Bobby and the script is Rob Burson?
There's
Can
elements.
you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, there are definitely elements of Bobby Thompson that, for sure, that are in me. Maybe not to that extreme.
He also turns
some
out
of
to
the
be
stuff.
he also turns out to be a pretty decent character. So
Well, I think the idea is like being like, maybe we're not perfect parents, and you know, sometimes when we do the best we can with our kids, and so there's some there's some stuff in there that crosses over. I raised two teenage daughters. Their mom was involved but lived in a different state, and so I took on raising the two teenage daughters after the divorce myself. From I say teenage because it was like from entering high school to graduation, basically. I had that period of time pretty much solo, and then you know, right after the divorce, there was probably a year of Bobby Thompson, which was a bad Santa type of behavior.
well, for those of you,
But, yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for those of you who have not seen the movie, let me just read very briefly the summary. Bobby Thompson is a kind of a down and out. He used to be somebody. He's not what he used to be, a country Western singer, blues, kind of a country guy who has seen better times in many ways. And as he says several times throughout the movie, he hasn't been responsible for much in his life. And all of a sudden, he's got a major responsibility presented to him. A young girl who may be his daughter, something from the past that he has little memory of. And the movie gets complicated from there. It says, Hell of a Heartache tells the story of a faded and jaded country music legend in his own mind, Bobby Thompson, who was long past his prime playing guitar and who, as he says, has not made a commitment to anything his entire life. This all changes in this hard-hitting, dark and gritty, darkly comic and well-made feature film, et cetera, leading up to Bobby's decisions at the end. And I'll leave that. I won't get into that because you need to see the movie and see what happens here. But anyway, it's that kind of a film. And so, Rob, when did your creative guys come together on this? So the ones that I'm looking at right here now and that are on the panel, Katie and Vic and Brendan, when did they get involved with the project?
I think right away. I think once we decided, we kind of did everything backwards. It was like, okay, we're going to shoot a feature on this date. We don't have a script or anything, but on this date, no matter what comes, we're going to be shooting this film. Are you guys in? And they're like, yeah, okay. And literally that's, could count on them. So, and then we started to put it together, and that was the idea of like, we got to a certain point with the script, like we have no choice but to start shooting at this point in time with what we have. So I would say right away, this crew was there. Would you guys agree with that?
I think I remember one time we were at a screening for one of our like earlier short films that we did. And we were like walking to a, like from a corner store or something. And you were just like, are we like, I want to make a movie. Are you guys in?
Yeah.
like I have an idea and I'm like working on a script. Like, are you guys down? And like, it was all just like, yeah, of course. Duh.
Yeah, it was cool. It was very cool.
Well, now let me ask, play the the more traditional line on this. You know, a bunch of people get together to make an independent film, and money's involved, and lives are involved, and reputations are involved, and usually attorneys get involved. Did, did you guys have an attorney? Were contracts signed? Did some of that come together, you know, in a formal way? Did you organize around a certain legal structure so that you could raise money and get the word out?
It was pretty loosey-goosey. I mean, I don't know what it was pretty informal. It was very informal.
I do want to state for the record that I do have signed releases from all talent and locations. Just, just saying.
Yeah.
That was probably like the most formal thing we did. I think everything else was just like, we're making a movie, right?
Well, you guys must be a real trusting group of friends. I tell you that.
It was, I mean, it was certainly risky
Sure.
to do that because there was probably all told 120 people involved in this film in one way or the other. If that's location people or, people who've read the script or have interacted with, like there was.
We did have an like crowdfunding.
Indiegogo, yeah. And so there was this kind of an idea of like, I really want to keep this making a movie amongst friends, and it was risky, but
now this probably gets over into Katie a little bit as you know, kind of a managerial logistical type, assistant directing, and given your background kind of on the organizational front, you had to, I'm just guessing here a little bit, you had to pull the thing together. You had to look at the shooting schedule, the production schedule, get it kind of organized. How long are we going to be out here? Where are we going to be? What do we need? Were those some of the things that you got involved in?
Oh, absolutely. But I will say that I'm very fortunate in the fact that I've been working with these people for so long that I know how Vic works. I know how Rob works. I know how Brendan works. And our other two main crew members, I know how they work to some extent. We shot in my hometown. And so in that sense, it made it easier for me to sort of stitch together a shooting schedule and, plan out the full production. But there were certainly some late nights, late Zoom call nights where we're like, I guess the biggest challenge that I faced as in scheduling was scheduling a kid during the school year. That was a big problem. And that's where a lot of those late nights came in, where it's like, we need this exterior at this time of day. This is how long we're thinking it's going to take, but we can't shoot that because we don't have Genesis that day. It's a school day. But again, I want to reiterate, I was very fortunate that I've worked with these people for so long that it was a lot easier than other productions I've been on.
Now, Rob, you said a couple of times that you got to the point where you said, we just have to shoot blah, 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 X date in the future. Why was there something very specific about, we got to shoot, Tuesday the 5th, that's when we have to begin? And
for me, it was, I had seen a lot of, it's all delicate, but for me, I'd seen a lot of filmmakers who talked a lot about shooting feature films, and it's then 2 years go by, 3 years, and they just don't get done. So there was something about picking a hard date. I think that Vic and everybody would have available that time. We did that first on this. Is everybody available? And let's pick this hard date. And even if we have to shoot it with a camcorder, we're shooting a movie. And that was just, for me, sort of my internal motivation to have this hard deadline that forced me to get my act together and make sure it happened. Does that answer the question at all?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Vic, tell us a little bit about how you got involved. And I think, again, I know there's the friendship thing and all of that, and you just kind of, jumped on board. But this was, if I may make an observation, this was big for you, because this, I believe, was your first credit as a full DP on a feature film. So you must have given this some thought as to what's going on here.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was I think a long time coming. I think me and Rob had been talking about shooting a feature for probably, I would say 3 or 4 years before we actually did it, right? So it was just kind of like, not if we shoot it, more like when it happens. So I was just ready to pull the trigger and kind of drop everything to make this movie when it finally happened. And I was freelance for 8 years. So, I just basically just took whatever job, and this would be the job that I happened to take for, the 2-week period that we had to shoot. So, a lot of thought went into, style. I think my big thing was wanting to shoot efficiently, make the most of our limited time, especially since some locations we had to be like in and out very quickly. So I wanted to go for a more naturalistic, low light kind of look, working with like one light source, that kind of thing, just very simplistic as it could be. So that was a big role and kind of factor that went into deciding the style of the cinematography.
And I'd very much like to get into that a little bit more as we go along here. It's kind of funny. There's another feature film that has been shown at the festival, and we've had a panel discussion around it. And the director said impossibly, no one believed her, we shot this in 10 days. Can you guys beat that? Did Hell of a Heartache come in under 10, or were you did you spend a little bit more time than that?
I think that's kind of an interesting thing, is some days, because of the whole shooting schedule with Genesis, I think things got dragged out a little longer in different kinds of ways. Like our weekends were busy, but we ended up having all this dead space during the week. Like, it was like a Monday or a Tuesday, and it's like, okay, let's shoot for 2 hours in the morning and then take a 6-hour lunch break, and then let's shoot for 5 hours in the evening. It was like, really, it's like, usually it's set, you're doing 12 to 16-hour days, and it's like, well, we shot 7 hours today, I guess we're done. It's like, I remember we wrapped it probably 3 p.m. a couple times, and we would just talking about plans for the next day. It was like, in terms of like long days, it was like there weren't any, I feel like, and it was very low stress in that regard, which was actually really nice. But our weekends were very packed. I feel like, beginning to end of day, like we had full long days with Genesis there. So for that reason, we got stretched out to, I think, like 17 shoot days total. I think 14 days in the original principal photography, and then like 3 days of pickups months later.
And Brendan, when did you start to get thinking about the music and the score?
Well, I was actually on set for a good portion of the shooting, doing on location sound. So I had actually already started coming up with a few sketches in downtime based on the footage that I was seeing from Vic and, the acting style. I already kind of had a couple ideas for themes and just a general vibe in my head. So I would, when we would have like 6 hours to do nothing, I would whip up a little, just, I guess, like a mood sketch. And then I would show Rob and Vic and Katie and get some feedback. And that was kind of those are the first little sketches. And then after that, I didn't really do much for the entirety of when the film was being edited. And then once I had picture lock, I just kind of hit the ground running and started like chunking the film off into little blocks. And then I would send Rob like, all right, here's the first 25 minutes, here's the next 25 minutes, and tweaking from there.
There's a real dark vibe in the music in a lot of scenes that is just really enhances the emotional quality and the sense of dread and the horrible things that are happening. Did that kind of evolve, Rob? You had a hand in that? I mean, you guys went back and forth on that.
I think, well, it was Brendan's interpretation might be a little different, but we talked about that in the beginning. We talked about it's okay for the music to lead the mood, we wanted electronic versus, so Brendan's obviously perfect for that, versus like an acoustic sounding stuff, right? We talked about that, who Brendan's influences were. Yeah, that fits. Let's go. Let's do this. And then, and Brendan, I don't know if you have a different interpretation of this. It was like, okay, have at it. Like, go. You're good. And you had a lot of. I trusted him, and he had. It was all his from there. Would you? I don't know. What do you think, Brendan?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's about right. And you know, like, I don't know. I would just kind of send little sketches to Rob, and he was usually just like, all right, that's good. Keep it up. And you know, like I know you noticed the dark mood of a lot of it, but the thing that stands out to me actually is a lot of the more lighter, uplifting pieces. Those are the parts that I really remember and that stood out to me. And it was
Especially
also
the ending, in my opinion.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it also was fun to, because like I did most of the music in the movie. I didn't do all of it. There were also like the original songs that were sung by, you know, like the actual song, Hillbilly Heartbreak. You know, and it was kind of interesting to have that contrast, especially at the end, the very last piece that I wrote for the movie. It ends on the same chord that Hell of a Heartache, or that Hillbilly Heartbreak begins on. So it just fades out, and then there's like this perfect strum chord that just like, it's like the perfect bookend to the movie. And it was cool to like have that kind of as have the credit song as like a noted endpoint for what I was going for, to like end on.
And when you got the picture lock, how long did it take after that for you to get the score pretty much the way you wanted?
Well, I'm a huge procrastinator, so it was kind of like, all right, you've got about 4 months. I think it was like, you got about 4 months to work on this, 4 or 5 months. And then I think I spent like maybe the last, like I did a little bit here and there. And then I spent most like the last 3 weeks, just like all day in the studio, you know, like when I wasn't at work, I was just like, all right, time to, you know, hit the tapes, get things going.
Excellent, all very good. Another thing that is we need to talk about a little bit is the relationship between Rob and Katie. Here we have the director who is the lead actor, and here we have a first assistant director who's probably running the show while the director's acting. How did this work out, you guys?
Rob, do you want to go first? Do you want me
Sure.
to?
It's kind of like with Brendan, you know, I'm a fan, so I'm like, you do what you need to do, boss me around. No, it was a really good, I felt like a great working relationship. There were times when I would really want direction from her, like I'm engulfed in it, and she'd say, Rob, can you give me a little bit of something, right? Like, I just want a little more of a smirk right there. And I'd be like, yes, I wanted the feedback. I wanted to hear what she was seeing, you know, because you can't see yourself. So she was great. And she did a lot more than that kind of stuff. She was doing the scheduling every single night. There's a couple nights when she was basically like, that's where dinner came from, because we all stayed in my home. A lot of us did. And so she'd come home and like have bought groceries and be fixing dinner after being, you know, a first AD all day long. And so, yeah, it was really great having Katie. Totally trusted her on everything. You know, there was very little, I think, creative differences, or there was no drama. Like, to my memory, it was very, very smooth. It was a no drama set. There might have been a couple little things, but not with Katie, you know, here and there, just normal creative, you know, working through a scene type of stuff. But yeah, it was pretty smooth, I thought. Katie?
Yeah, I think that's another way that we've benefited from knowing each other for so long is I know the way that Rob works. We speak to each other we have a film language with each other, so I know what he's getting at, even if he doesn't quite know. So I'm able to sort of,
No, that's
I was
perfect.
able to sort of massage out his performance when he wanted or needed it.
Mhm.
And it was such a, I think something that was super important to us, to both of us, was to have a very low drama set, and a very collaborative set, which was really nice. And I think it helped everything run smoothly. And yeah.
Did you ever feel overwhelmed? I mean, because you had not only your first AD responsibilities, here you had, you were looking at the set and kind of running the whole show.
Yeah. There's like every now and then, especially just when it came to scheduling things, particularly with Genesis, that's when I felt a little overwhelmed. But I'm lucky that I thrive a little bit off of the stress, which is why being on set is the place that I should be. So yes, I did feel a little overwhelmed, but I always had Rob to fall back on. I always had, I knew that Vic and Brendan and the rest of our crew were going to do their job. So
this is excellent. A very distinguishing feature of the movie, this relationship and how it all worked. And I'd like to shift back over to cinematography and Vic. Again, you have the script. I don't know whether there were any storyboards or diagrams or sketches or images that you looked at, but in conversation with Rob and the other creative, what did you see in this film? What was the look you were envisioning? So much of it takes place at night. We're in the Cactus Cafe. No obvious source of light, yet we have to light people. Then we do have daytime scenes, the normal kind of stuff. But so did you know what I'm asking? What was going through your mind? How did you see the look of the film, and how did you talk with Rob about it?
I think there were probably like 5 films I think we discussed on style that we were going for. What's the one, Rob? Why can't I think of the name? The Sofia Coppola one.
Somewhere.
Yeah, Somewhere. Yeah. That was kind of a big style inspiration for Rob. So that was one thing we pulled from. I think a lot of just I feel like we pulled from just anything that it's kind of inspired us to do something similar. Like we were like, oh, this movie was shot, on a super low budget, in a very small town, and so those are kind of films that we were just kind of passing back and forth. I can't pull any off the top of my head right now on the spot, but those were movies that we were like, oh, we can relate to this as filmmakers in terms of how it was made. So this is kind of what we're going for. And that's kind of just our own style anyway. Rob does small town dramas, and then I go for a more naturalistic. I'm not really into the high key lighting style personally, so it kind of meshes well stylistically with our 2 preferences. So that's kind of what we were going for. We were lucky enough to have a friend let us rent his camera for a really good price. So we shot on the Sony FS7. And then we rented, we spent some good, money on renting Zeiss primes. So we made sure, lenses were, kind of a priority there in terms of lensing. So we shot pretty much the whole movie on a 50 millimeter, I think it was an 85. I think we rented a 50, 85 and a 28 millimeter. And then
Vic, again, what was it? What was the camera you used?
Sony FS7.
Is that what was resolution an issue? I mean, I'm not too familiar with that camera. Was it a 4K, a 6K?
Yeah, it's a 4K camera that shoots S-Log and RAW. Although we shot S-Log 2. S-Log 2 does better than S-Log 3 in low light, just to get really technical there. So that was kind of our priority. So, and then assistant camera, he was always testing, with the light meter, as we both were, just making sure that everything was syncing up correctly. That we weren't underexposing too much, especially in the low light conditions. We didn't want it to be too dark, obviously. We still wanted it to look like a pretty image. We didn't want it to look like it wasn't lit. That's a fine line to balance. There's obviously, we're not working with no lights, we're still lighting things and still making sure the image is composed well and lit correctly.
Well, tell us how you approached some of those low light scenes, like in the bar, those bar scenes, and then some of the parking lots, when Bobby's out there with Sophie and stuff, and where there's no obvious natural sort of light, but you got to throw something in there.
Right. Yeah. So the bar was really hard because we only had the bar from like 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. On 3 or 4 separate days. So we had to load in and load out by 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. Or 10 a.m. So it was like 3 to 4 hours, I believe. So we would shoot like a scene or two, and it was like we were just in and out quick. We had gone in there a few days before we started shooting to kind of figure out, okay, we want to put, an LED here. We had a Kino Flow kit. And then I'm trying to think what else we used.
Like Christmas
Well,
lights in the background.
Yeah.
And
neon signs.
Yeah.
we also had to take that time to black out all the windows because some of the bar scenes were at night. So that was a lot of pre-planning.
A lot going on there. In
Yes.
terms of the laundromat, which is a scene we also had very limited time in, but I'm like far happier with how it turned out because I wanted to shoot in the laundromat since I was in film school, just because the orange really pops in there, and it's just, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of like a bucket list thing as a filmmaker.
I mentioned to Rob, I thought that was one of the great scenes in the movie, both emotionally and photographically. It all comes together there.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we all agree that was like one of our favorite scenes, just beginning to end in terms of everything meshing together. So that was another one where I think there wasn't a light switch for the bulbs. So we had to unscrew like half of the bulbs in the laundromat manually.
We put other fluorescent lights in too, right? Like we changed out
some of them were tungsten balanced and some of them were daylight balanced. So we had to get rid of all the tungsten balanced bulbs and make sure they were all daylight. So that was like, we used, I think all like on-site practicals in that scene. And that was it. And we might've thrown a Kino up, but I don't think did we? No, It was all just using on-site practical light for that scene and just using the light meter to make sure everything was exposed correctly.
A little bit of smoke.
And a little bit and a couple of gels too.
Yeah, gels too. Yeah, that was another thing is I throw fog into a lot of scenes. I definitely overdid it a few times, but that's kind of like a staple is I use fog to kind of get more of a film grain look on a digital camera. And I just feel like it makes it look a little more organic instead of, so sharp. Sorry.
I was just, we could talk on some of these. There are a lot of scenes I'd like to go over. Again, the blend of the photography, the music, the staging, just the composition. But I have a question that has come in about the casting. And Rob, would you like to address that? We've got the performance of Sophie is just unbelievable. Everybody is right on this. Where did you find these people?
So I casted Sophie. I cast her mom first, Erica Van Paris, and then Erica was like, "I have a daughter. I'll send you a picture." And I'm like, "Oh my God, she's perfect. Like, can she act?" And she goes, "Yeah, she can act." And so then we did a Zoom, and me and Sophie. Genesis is her name, Genesis Van Paris, and we read lines back and forth to each other. And that deadline date of shooting the film was fast approaching, and she was perfect in that reading. And so I said, let's do this. Can you be here on the weekends? We'll make it work. And so Erica was fantastic in working with her and getting her up here. And there was that first scene we did with her in a hotel room, in the hotel room. And, there was a little bit of like, okay, is this going to work? Are we going to jive? Is this going to be okay? And there was like a collective sigh of relief after that first scene was done. Like, okay, we're good to go. We're good to go. She's going to be great. And her and I connected just more and more and more as we went along. Everybody fell in love with her on set for sure. She was great. She was really great. And then everyone else I've worked with in films before, like I've been in their films, and they're, director, actor, filmmakers themselves. And so there was not a lot of auditions in those situations because I already knew they could act. I knew what they could bring and what kind of style they could bring. And so there was hardly any auditions. It was mostly people that I already knew who already had a body of work locally, and they were plugged into those roles. Everybody showed up, everybody did great. So
how much time did you have for rehearsal, for practice, for
not a lot. There was a lot of that downtime that Vic was talking about earlier. While we're filming the movie, that's when we were doing some of the rehearsals. I'd asked maybe one of the actors to come in 4 or 5 hours before the shoot, and then we just like sit on my couch and just read lines back and forth and dial it in, and then go, and we're off and running. And there's something that I kind of like about that rawness a little bit, where it's not this polished line reading back and forth, and you're sort of forced a little bit to be on your heels and improvising a little bit, and everybody had some improvising skills. And so that I think that I personally felt like when it works, it brings in this organic kind of back and forth that seems real rather than the line reading type of acting. So,
And on our busier days, especially, I tried to build in time for Rob to get comfortable with who he was acting against, and vice versa. So that was an important thing, especially during our busier days.
Mm-hmm,
and Katie, given the fact that you had a minor on set, did that present certain challenges? Did you have to have a teacher on set or a guardian, or how does that work?
Well, luckily her mom was in the movie as well, so she was always around with her, so that presented no challenges. The biggest challenge was just scheduling, making sure that she had enough time so she would have enough rest to get to school, the next day if we were filming on a Sunday. It was all scheduling challenges, but we were again lucky that her mom was on set as well. So no issues there.
And Brendan, you said that you did the on-set sound recording. Tell us a little bit about that. And what was your approach there? Was it lavalier mics or boom mics, or?
Yeah, so a lot of that was we had these little Zoom H1 recorders that just you plug in a lav mic, clip it somewhere on the close where it doesn't show up on the camera very much, and I held a boom Zoom H6 recorder on a monopod, basically, just holding over the scene, and that was pretty much it. And then we also had was it Daniel Porpora doing sound when I couldn't be there, and
Larry
he had his own gear, and he probably did a better job than me. But yeah, it wasn't the most difficult part, I think, was scenes where the clothing didn't quite allow for a lav to be clipped because of either the lack of clothing or the difficult clothing to work with. So
yeah, I wonder what those scenes were. Yeah.
So there were a couple scenes where we just kind of had to make the boom work and clean up in post.
Well, the cast is outstanding, and maybe we should spend a few minutes too, Rob, because part of your marketing and advertising, and part of what we're trying to do here too, is to shine a spotlight on Arizona filming. And could you address, all of you have comments about what's going on up there in Sedona? What was it like filming in Arizona? Katie, it wasn't Cottonwood, was it? It was Cottonwood. How did you get the community behind you? It sounds like you found most of what you needed, pretty close to home.
Yeah, I live here. Katie is in Phoenix, but
Cottonwood's my hometown.
Cottonwood's her hometown. And so I was able, and I've been here a long time, like 30 years in this area, in the Verde Valley. So I was able to go to locations, and I probably knew the person who was running that business, and would say, hey, can we, very casually again, can we shoot a movie here? Do you have time for us to do it? And pretty much everybody said yes. That was one of the benefits of being in a local community. The town itself matches some of the, we kind of wrote the screenplay in it because the town was right here for us. It like matched the settings for us. And so, but all the locals, businesses here were really great. Pretty much, I got chased out, ran out of a couple places, but most places were really open to it, really excited about it. Like, it's not like in LA where you walk in and ask to shoot a movie, they want money and permits and everything else. They're like just so happy to be shooting a movie, and loved it. And so that was my experience. And so by the time we got to movie time, we had locations set also. Hope that addressed the question.
Sure.
Yeah.
Katie,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, you probably had a real hand in pulling a lot of that local stuff together as well.
A lot of that was Rob, because by the time or during pre-production, I was living in Phoenix. But once we got to locations, I knew a lot of the same people that Rob did, just because it's a very small town. And I think that Rob speaks to one of the biggest benefits of shooting something in a small town is you have a little bit more freedom. People are a little bit more welcoming and a little bit less apt to ask you for money or permits. So yeah.
In the locations that you list in the credits, were those did you need permits for those, or?
No permits.
No,
No,
we just got signed releases for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a couple of questions, and I know, Rob, you and I talked a little bit about this, and you can be as circumspect as you choose to be. The budget for the film?
Under 15,000. I don't want to get too much into that, really. I mean, it was partially an Indiegogo, partially a bunch of money that I saved, and then some family here and there would pitch in stuff. Like I would get a little like credit gift card, like in the mail from my parents or something, for here, feed the crew today. So I would say under 15 is probably 10 to 15,000 depending. Yes, so in that range.
And did you do any like formal fundraising campaigns? Go to the community center and have a little party and meet and greet and pitch the film and talk about the cast and the blah blah blah, trying to raise money that way?
We did an online Indiegogo, which was successful for, I think it was 2,500 or 3,500, something like that. But this was a learning experience. So next time I would probably do something like that, John. I would amp up that sort of fundraising stuff and see where that could take us.
And I have to ask you too, as we kind of get close to the end here, about next steps for the film. I know we're all in this together. I know the film was, I believe, shown at the Sedona Film Festival.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had some exposure. What's the plan, the strategy for distribution? What do you hope will happen?
I think Vic and I will talk a little bit more about that, but I think our next step is we wanted to do some festivals, and so this has been great. COVID kind of put us, like, that was a hard stop, and now we're back again. And I think we're looking at online, like Prime, and let's see what else we could get up there. I think that's going to be the next step. I think Vic, there's still some things we want a little bit of color correction things, maybe a little tweaks here and there. Probably some credit stuff we still need to make sure is accurate. And anyway, there's little things still to touch up, but we're probably looking at online distribution, and we'll self-distribute probably. So.
And Vic, do you probably should have, I should have introduced this a little earlier. Vic, could you talk, you don't have an awful lot of time, but about the post-production process? How did you, where did you look at dailies? How did you do your color correction? Who did your post?
Yeah, so I was the editor for the film. So that was kind of another approach with my cinematography, was thinking of the edit while I was shooting. But we did dailies pretty much every night because we had so much time. So, you know,
we should mention real quick, we should mention that David Smith was her assistant camera, and James Kelly was kind of jack of all trades, grip, right?
Mhm.
And Larry Pittman also did sound. But David Smith was really great at putting together these dailies at the end of the night. And so I didn't mean to interrupt you, Vic, but we would get back to the place here where everyone was staying, and we'd, on the big screen TV, watch these clips from the day. He'd have them ready within an hour probably.
Yeah. Through like sample grading and stuff on for us too sometimes. Like it was great to have him, you know, handling everything. He's a really talented DP himself as well. So but yeah, anyway, back to editing. That was one thing, is, you know, I kind of was editing in my head while we were shooting, and I would kind of adjust shots on the fly a little bit. I'm like, okay, this isn't going to work in the edit, so let's kind of change how we're shooting this. So I think editing took a while.
Sure.
I mean, lots of other stuff going on too. So I think it was maybe a year or so before we got a first draft. And then, I mean, we were working on picture, because when did I send you picture lock, Brandon? Is it like August or September?
I think it was
October.
I think it was later in the year.
Yeah, it was, like, because you had like 4 months.
Yeah. I think I had like 4 or 5 months. So it was definitely like, October,
Yeah.
I think.
Brendan, was this your first feature?
Yeah. This was my first time doing a feature film.
So for the Brendan brother and sister, first time cine, first time sound. What's your main takeaway? What after the process? What do you conclude? What did you learn?
I don't know. I mean, it was definitely like a learning experience for sure. There's some things I didn't account for when I was I didn't think about how much time there would be in the movie that didn't have sound at all. So there were a lot of scenes where like we had originally planned on having music, and then we just decided like, no, let's just let the silence and the sound of the scene kind of speak for itself on this one. And then there were a couple other scenes where the music we had planned on the music being a lot more direct or a lot more upbeat or a different mood or something. And then we just kind of, in the end, opted for something a little more low key, something that would like let the visuals speak for themselves. So I think, because like when I compose, I normally try to make things, I don't normally compose for film. I try to make music that stands out on its own. So having to like kind of let the music take the back seat, but still drive the mood in a way was that was a unique experience.
Yeah, I don't even think I threw temp music in or anything, maybe one time, but like I just kind of was like, oh, I can kind of already guess what he's gonna do to this. So I was already kind of editing with how he would put music to it as well. And this was my second feature to edit. The other one was vastly different. It was like a dark comedy. So this was like a complete 180.
Yeah, and a lot of Vic's cinematography has a lot of motion in it already, which makes the music, you can kind of if the music can stand still, it kind of gives the motion of the visuals kind of gives the music a sense of motion. So it's, you kind of have to like anticipate how, like, instead of making the music the whole thing, like, how is this just one little piece of the overall, the gestalt of the film, the whole, greater than the sum of its parts kind of thing.
Well, Vic, the last scene there at school when Dad comes over with a sandwich and there's a long tracking shot as she comes out to meet him. Was that on a steady cam? That was a great shot.
Thanks. Yeah, that was all glide cam. So basically, I've been using a glide cam like as a staple of just how I shoot for probably 7 years now, quite a while. I've done a lot of documentary and just event work with one, so I'm very comfortable using one. So that was kind of one thing we wanted to do, was a really long tracking shot for that scene, and Katie had a lot to do with executing.
Katie was crucial to that scene.
That was my proudest moment as a filmmaker.
Explain what was going on.
It was coordinating. So that's also my old high school, which was surreal and hilarious to me. But coordinating the kids and getting the kids to do what I needed them to, and coordinating with Vic to get the motion that we needed. It took some work, but it was really fun.
Like, what you don't see behind the camera is Katie yelling at kids to start doing
Katie's doing this. I'm standing there with the lunch bag, that's all I had to do. So she
Well, you really cleaned up your act there, Bobby. That was
I think we ended up doing 5 takes, was it?
oh my God, I tell you, you got to bring some Kleenex to this one. And the music in there too, Brendan, in that shot is just the opening and the closing. That opening montage I thought was sensational.
Oh, good.
Again, before the credits, you must have spent a fair amount of time designing that. That's got it all. You've got some aerials in there. You got.
James was running after the truck with a steady cam. Yeah.
It was on James. James
is running down the road with a steady cam on that one. That's right.
I can do that one.
Well, we have reached the magic hour, I think, here, guys. Let me make one more check here for questions. You all went to the same school. Would you recommend film school in general?
I know a lot of self-taught people that are incredibly talented. I don't know if I would have been able to progress to where I am without film school. But that's not to discount at all the folks that are self-taught.
Everyone's journey is really different. I know some people that have gone to film school that have dropped out, and it was better for them to go that way. Our school was great for us, I think, because it was a trade school, so it was a 1-year program, and I think that was perfect for me personally. But I think some people need 4 years of the school. I think some people they literally are just born filmmakers, and they are just such hard workers. And
and I have to,
David to film school, he's just hit the ground running, and I mean, he's one of the most talented filmmakers I know in Arizona, as is James. I don't think James never went to school either. I know people that went to all 4 years, got a bachelor's or a master's, and it was great for them. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for that. And I think that needs to be said more, because I think people feel like there's a formula to being successful as a filmmaker, and there's just not. So.
Brendan, you had a thought?
Right. Yeah, I was just going to say, I actually didn't go to that film school. I went to Glendale Community College and studied audio production. And one thing that I kind of picked up is that it's not really about going to school. For me, it wasn't about going to school to learn how to do all these things, or like I didn't pick up my skill in school, but like what I did get out of school was learning what tools are available. So like, basically, like I all of my classes were crash courses of like, all right, these are the microphones you can use. These are the, this is the software that's available. This is all the stuff that you can use go figure out what you like. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think film school is a lot of the same kind of thing.
Yeah, it's about, you know, especially if you don't have those opportunities, it's a good way to familiarize yourself with theory and gear and things like that. You know, because some people, you know, can't super comfortable just going on YouTube and learning things themselves. Other people, you know, they need to be a little more hands-on from the get-go. So it's really just what's best for you and how you learn.
And also sometimes you can find lifelong friends.
Katie.
Well, as we conclude here, Rob, would you, excuse me, Rob, would you like to wrap things up for us here with some concluding thoughts about Hell of a Heartache, your final thoughts and experience making the movie and your future steps?
Sure. I mean, I just loved working with these guys here. You guys are amazing. Thank you. If I don't say that enough publicly, you guys really helped pull this together. It was a very collaborative event. I feel like, and I would do it all over again. Yeah, I had a blast. I had a really fun time. I mean, I was pretty stressed out by the end, but it was like a really fun stress. I just had a really good time doing this. And John, thanks for letting us do this and be on this panel. This has been great.
It is
Great questions.
It is our pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for this very informative and interesting dialogue. I learned a lot. You could tell while there were a whole bunch of serious things going on in this movie that you guys were having fun doing it. It's just, there was a vibe there that came through in addition to the content in the movie, and you all did so well. And I wish you all the very best of luck. Let's stay in touch. Come back again to Arizona Film Festival, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, John, so much.
Thanks so much.
All right, guys.
So long
Bye-bye.
now.